Hi, in this video we're going to go over the intersection report. So specifically we're going to show you how to generate the intersection report. I'm going to give you an overview of how the intersection report looks like, the interface, what is the data showing, and how to run the macros to compare server data or your current database data to your intersection report to show you which family is missing data. So to start out, we're going to click into your TAKEOFF tab inside your Revit model. So inside here, you'll notice that there's this one button called Setup Report. So you can click into that. So let's save this under the TAKEOFF folder. Let's call it the intersection report. So let's do that. Should be pretty quick. Done. Okay. Once that is done, go to your folder and you should see it right here. It's generated for you. So open that up. So here's your intersection report. But before we begin, I forgot to mention that prior to this video, there should be a step here that was mentioned before you start your training. So just to kind of go over it again. So if you open up your folder, you should see this program right here, intersection report macro update. You should have ran that before you any of these steps. So if you haven't done so yet, please run it. But this is assuming that you've already done so. So again, we're just touching up on the prior steps. So let's minimize that. So open here. So here's your intersection report. So you notice here that it's a bunch of family names, right? Right here, it's like all your verticals. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see your horizontals. These are your sills. So these are your horizontals. So over to your right, you'll notice that you'll see the mullion name is checked. So that's by default. So you should click, if you click into unit number, this will show you where this main vertical that they're decided to sort out is intersecting with this sill, is intersecting with this head, and at what unit, right? So this is what we mean by intersection report, right? It's wherever your vertical meets with, is perpendicular with whatever horizontal family it comes across, right? So this tells you what unit it occurs on and so forth, so you can use this to kind of decide what the project kind of looks like overall. So this is your unit boundary. So your unit boundary tab shows you all, like within the unit, what is the boundary, what is the makeup of that unit in terms of the perimeter. So then your two verticals and then your head and the sill. Okay. And this is your intersection data. All right. It's all your family. And this is unit boundary data. Okay. So what we would normally do after we run the intersection report, we would run this macros that would allow us to compare data that's either on the server or compared to the database that we're currently on. So right now I'm going to show you how it will look like if we compare it to the server. Okay. So very easy. Go into your developer tab, hit macros. So if you had ran that program successfully in the prerequisite steps, you should see this command right here, check data exists, and you can run that macros right here. So it might take a sec. Okay, and that took about a minute. So if you have done it successfully, it should bring you to, it should have generated 2 additional tabs, intersection with data and intersection without data. So, and automatically it brings you to the tab intersection without data. So these are all the quote unquote families without data as compared to a server, right? So you can kind of see how there's a bunch of Revit families with profile modifiers. So again, profile modifiers are used to distinguish a family from the detail, right? The very specific condition. So it would be expected that these families with quote unquote profile modifiers wouldn't have any data on the server, because we don't want to put any project specific conditions onto the server for reuse, right? So just a comparison. So let's take this for example right here, this SW75-3165007P. So if you open up your CAD, so let's open up here. So let's give you an example of why that's in the tab of intersections without data. So if you run the ACAD parts command, this brings up the server data. So under Revit resource, this is the Revit family. So let's look for SW75-3175007. Just double check. $3165,007. So 3165C. So you see how there's 001, 002, 3, 5, no 6, no 7, but there's an 8. So again, it looks into the server data and then compare it back to your intersection report, like the data on in your Revit, and see if there's any data existing. Okay. So there's that one. So now I'm going to show you how to compare it to your current database. So now you may want to ask, like, why do we care if we have compared it to the current database versus the server data? So at the very least, when you're constantly setting up your project, you're going to populate your UD window with more and more data, right? So as we go, it serves us keep track. If we run the intersection report, it will show you like what's missing still, right? So let's take a good look at this example right here. So over here, for your intersection report, let's take here your first item right here, your DAS W75-5263-001P. It says right here, it says intersection without data. That means we don't have any server data because it's looking directly at the server, right? So if we were to try to compare it to our current database, so we already have the current database open, or you should have it still open. So you kind of see here, if I filter by Revit resources, DAS W75-5262-001P, I made that right here. What you can do is just kind of copy, or you can just populate it by adding it. Oh, let's just do it from scratch. Let's delete this first. So what you can do is just take a typical what you can do is just take this typical male vertical, copy it here and paste it. You can, for now, just leave the detail number alone. This is just to show the Revit family side, so you can call it DA right here. Right. Hit apply. So now you have data for the quote unquote the DAS family, right? So now we're going to point your intersection report to your current database, and you can kind of see what we mean by, help you keep track of what data you have and what data you don't have. So don't save this. So close this here. So after that, just open up the intersection report again. Okay, so once you have your intersection report open, so under the H column, you would type in the words current DB. DB stands for database. So now it will know to look into your current database that you have open. So now if you run your macros, there, you see how the DAS W755262.001 is not on your list of intersections without data anymore. It's actually over here. Right? So as you're going to populate your UD window with more and more data, right? Like using this as a guide, you should see this list dwindling down to 0, right? Sometimes you'll remove the modifier if you don't see that it's needed, or sometimes you'll keep it. So there's the overview for intersection report. Thank you.